Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great week. Marty here with Warehouse and Operations as a career. It's been kind of busy around here. I just finished up a 4-part series on leadership with quite possibly the strongest and brightest, the most motivated group of young leads and supervisors that I've had the privilege to speak to. They've got their plans all put together, and I'm betting each one of them are going to reach their goals, their career goals, and I'm betting that they're going to reach them a lot sooner than they realize. So now I'll be packing up for a quick trip to Philadelphia, but I wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little ops to kind of wind down a bit this evening. So let's see, what are we going to talk about today? Looking through my notes and emails, I see a couple of questions about third-party audits. One gentleman asked, how can these people come in and change up everything that we're doing? And we had a new lead, I think he's been a lead now for about 2 months, asking, is this audit as important as it seems? Both of those questions are really good ones, and I think we can answer them both by maybe looking at what a third-party warehouse audit is and what it's really for. Now, both of these gentlemen are in the distribution field, food service as it turns out, and yes, these audits are a big deal, and if they're suggesting any changes with our procedures or processes, it's probably a good thing, and I highly recommend listening to them and implementing any changes that they might suggest. You know, our companies may hire a third-party auditor to walk through our policies to ensure that all the city, state, and federal regulations are being followed, especially all the supporting documentation that goes along with it. You know, on the outside looking in, it looks like all we're doing is moving freight in and out, but in reality, there can be a lot of documentation that goes along with us unloading that trailer that's just pulled into door 18 there at the dock. Someone has probably already checked and documented the set point on the reefer unit, if it's a chilled or frozen load, and either the lumper or receiver is going to take the inside temperature of the air and the product when he or she opens the door to start working the load. Those are pretty important steps. As you can imagine, especially since we're dealing with fresh and frozen products, caution's got to be taken. The regulations regarding food safety are there for our protections as consumers. In this case, the receiver may have to catch or record the product's weights, maybe the country of origin even for HACCP or HACCP reasons. It'll be their job to protect against any cross-contamination like chicken on top of beef or chemicals anywhere near the food products. If you're not familiar with HACCP, it stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, and it is a big deal. The FDA, or Food and Drug Administration at the FDA.gov, tells us HACCP is a management system in which food safety is addressed through the analysis and control of biological, chemical, and physical hazards from raw material production, procurement and handling, to manufacturing, distribution, and consumption of the finished product. The program is quite detailed and it's pretty thorough. It's a very defined regulation. I'm kind of veering off the subject again, but I'll put something together and we'll talk about the how, why, and when of HACCP another time. So where was I? Oh yeah, so now that the product's on the docks, we may have to document that it does not sit there over a specified amount of time. Again, that's whatever is written in our procedure sheets. Those procedure sheets will probably state where in the warehouse and at what temperature we'll be storing it, and maybe even how long it's allowed to sit there until it ships out to the end user. Whether you know it or not, everything's documented. That's why our company utilizes those job descriptions and why our SOPs or standard operational procedures are written for every single task and how it moves throughout the warehouse and onto the transportation, ending up with the end user. You know, our sanitation departments, they work off of printed master cleaning schedules. It'll be broken down into things that are attended to daily and what we clean weekly, those more involved monthly projects, and the quarterly and yearly task even. It has to be documented with who performed the task and the date that it was done or completed is generally signed off on by a member of management. Even our building maintenance department is documenting, when they take nuts and bolts or even tools outside of their department and use them in the aisles or around the products. Those audit firms are checking that we have those procedures written and that we're following them really to the letter. We all play a part. The sanitation guys, unloaders, receivers, pallet runners, put-away forks, selectors, replenishment teams, and loaders. All of our tasks are built on following these procedures and processes. If a procedure is written, that's what the city, fire marshals, all those teams from the state and federal departments like USDA and FDA, even Homeland Security will be following up on them. Making sure what we say we're doing is actually what we're doing. So our companies will hire a third party that's really versed in the rules and regulations to come in and observe or audit that everything's good and that we're performing everything correctly. I've always found them really great to work with. They're here to help teach us and help us get everything in order, if we are doing something improperly. I strongly advise listening to them. They can offer up a wealth of information and a lot of times may even point out some missed efficiencies, every once in a while. So I'd say yes, they're important and should be taken seriously. While we're on the subject of audits, and I know things are going to get hectic when the receptionist comes back to the warehouse announcing the fire marshal or city inspector is out front, or maybe even a federal agency. Our anxiety levels are going to go through the roof, but you're going to be okay. An interesting little side note, if you're the first one to greet them, ask to see their badge and credentials. That's actually the first thing they'll be checking on to see if you'll just let anyone into your building and around your food products. Now, I'd be courteous, but I'd make sure and ask for them. A lot of times I've seen managers try and shoot the breeze with an auditor, kind of buddy up to him, and I can assure you that's not what they're wanting to hear. And sometimes we could end up saying something that will just lead to more questions and a longer audit. They're visiting with us and they're doing their job. Be cordial with them and answer their questions. You don't have to be short or just stick to yes or no answers, but try not to offer up any additional information. Stick to the facts, and above all, just be honest with them. I've never met an auditor that tried to trip anyone up. They're really good at what they do, and I found them to be very open and informational. They just want the rules followed. After all, that's our objective too, and we'll be fine as long as we're not taking any shortcuts, and all of our employees know what their jobs actually are. I think audits are important and necessary, and I'm really a firm believer in using a third party to check up on us every now and then. We've been discussing the food service distribution side of things, but everything's the same for production warehouses too. All of our tasks are laid out on paper, and we should be performing them just like it's written. Another type of audit we may experience could be a visit from OSHA. Again, they're not there to rough us up by no means. Just like the other agencies that we just discussed, they want us doing things right. As we always discuss, our safety is paramount and should be our first priority, period. I've been involved in a couple of dealings with OSHA, and I find them to be very professional, straightforward, and by the book, but very instructive as well. Again, do our job right and to the best of our ability, and we'll be fine, safe, and we'll probably learn something from them too. I'll reach out to our WAOC safety man, Joe, and see if he can educate us a little on an OSHA audit, in the process of one. I hope I answered your questions today, and don't stress over third parties auditing your procedures. It's great to have another set of eyes looking at how we're performing our duties. Auditors have a job to do, and everyone that I've met really just wants to help. Until next week, let's take a moment and review our policies. Maybe do a little self-auditing, especially our safety procedures. Never hurts to review our safety practices.